indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We hope. Move to item 2, adoption of agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda?
Second. Motion made and seconded to approve the agenda. Is there any discussion, any additions, errors, omissions that you'd like to address? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Agenda is adopted. Item 3, approval of minutes, regular meeting of November 26th to 2024.
So
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Are there any errors, omissions, deletions, additions that one would like to address in there? Seeing or hearing of none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Minutes are approved. Agenda item 4, public remarks. Anyone present who would care to address the council, raise your hand. Give your name and address, please.
My name is Linda Johnson and I live at 21 Long Crossing Road. Tonight, you'll hear a presentation regarding the extension of sewers down Long Crossing and Alden's Crossing Road. There are several families in our neighborhood who experience problems with lack of well water. Our son lives at 9 Long Crossing Road, across the street from Cocoa. His well recovery rate is 6 gallons an hour, not per minute, 6 gallons an hour. We have 2 drilled wells on our property. The builder abandoned the first one due to insufficient water. We are very conservative with our water usage, especially after 2 new wells were drilled on our street several years ago. 2 sets of families had been sharing wells, and then 2 of the families decided to drill their own. If I plan to use the dishwasher at night, I don't do laundry that day. The home next door to us at 1 Alden's Crossing has 3 drilled wells on their property. The well they're using now is just a few feet short of 700 feet deep. They have run out of water and they are very conservative. The well for 3 Alden's Crossing is 600 feet deep and they run out of water regularly. The house at 30 Long Crossing had a shallow well and they did not have running water in their home for 2.5 years before the house was vacated in 2022. 2 elderly women were going to the Salmon River and were bringing home water in gallon jugs. Many years ago, that family pumped water from the Pine Brook to their house. And there's a pump house on the property. When sewers get put in, the wells dry up. Allowing the sewer extension will only exacerbate the problem in our neighborhood. East Hampton has had that problem when sewers were put around the area of Edgerton Street, and then later when they were put around the lake. Our residential neighborhood has already been negatively impacted for the sake of economic development. Are we going to have to take the hit for the dried up wells also? Is the town going to help us when our water runs out? Please consider holding off the sewer extension until public water can be put down the street with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would care to make public remarks?
Leonard Johnson, 21 Long Crossing Road. I was reading in the River East News Bulletin, the November 29th issue, page 20, about the East Hampton Village Center brownfields. The town should not be buying known contaminated properties. We already own enough contaminated properties that need remediation. Thank you.
Is there anyone
Okay.
else? present who would care to make public comments at this time? Is there anyone with their hand raised on Zoom? No one, no further request to make public remarks. We'll move on. Agenda item 5, presentations. Presentation from the WPCA regarding sewer extension.
I'm going to invite Mark Barmacy, who is the chairman of the WPCA and coincidentally the chairman of the Joint Facilities, to come up and talk to you a little bit about this, explain the Long Crossing extension, and give you an update. Mark? Thank you. Kathy has the PowerPoint.
Oh, okay, there's PowerPoint, good. You have to please forgive me for just a second because Anthony DeSmall, the Public Utilities Administrator, was supposed to be here and do this, but he's obviously has something come up and is not here, so I am subbing for him, even though he's a little bit more familiar with the details, but I'm very aware of the project, so we can continue on. All right, let's see. Here's some just details about the project history and things. Is that this area was always considered as a potential for sewer expansion. Both in terms of, say, there were when the original system was constructed, there were connections left for this area to potentially, while sewers were not run up Long Crossing or Alden's, there were connections a lot left to allow this area to be connected in the future. The 2005 wastewater facilities plan that was developed, again, generally recommended sewers potentially be provided this area. And then the same thing with the plan of conservation development. Again, so sewers generally proposed for this area. The sewer expansion in this area was, again, it's been discussed historically in the past. And now that Tony's here, seeing how he's more ready to do this presentation than I am, I'll turn it over to Anthony.
Meeting I started at 7, my mistake.
Mark, we didn't excuse you. We didn't excuse you. You're still on.
Oh, no, I'm here and available, huh?
Thank you.
So, so in 1979, they put the interceptor in Route 16. And they left a 12-inch stub to go up Alden's crossing. In 2005, the WPCA completed a wastewater facilities plan that recommended sewers generally in this area. They had them going up Cone Ave, Abbey Road, Champion, and they would eventually come down this portion of the town to get to the sewage treatment facility. So this proposed sewer project is generally consistent with our plan of conservation and development. And there was discussion in both 2014 and 2020 between the WPCA and developers at the time to put sanitary sewers in this portion of town. So the project that we got the 824 review completed for planning and zoning generally consists of about 3,500 linear feet of 12-inch gravity sewer, 1,000 linear feet of 8-inch force main, 1 submersible wastewater pump station with a capacity of about 600 gallons a minute. And the anticipated flows from just this portion of the project are 15,000 gallons a day. Now, the pump station and all the sewers would be sized to allow for future expansion up Cone, up Abbey, and up Champion. So the impacts to the WPCA from just this portion of the project, we're looking at a minimum of 227 sewer units, which is approximately at our current rate about $131,000 in revenue. It's about 6% increase to the total user base that we currently have. It's estimated to generate approximately $1.6 million in connection fees. And capacity at the sewage treatment plant is not an issue. We're currently doing 1.5 million gallons a day. Plant's permitted for 3.9, so we have an excess capacity of 2.4 million gallons per day. So another thing to consider with this project is and I'm not saying there's any plans to expand the sewer beyond just this portion, but this does open up the rest of the Route 66 corridor to eventually be sewered. Figure it's on the board. I think you guys have a copy of it, but the master plan for this area has sewers up Cone, Champion, Abbey, all the 66, closing the gap between Long Crossing and Champion. We anticipate that if the town were to put sewers in this area, you could potentially see another 200 to 400 homes and potentially 100,000 gallons of wastewater generated from those additional homes. And that's basically the extent of our presentation.
Tony, just a question. One of the earlier speakers before you got here brought up the fact that when sewers go in, there tends to be a number of wells that dry up. Is that,
I've never experienced that in my 20 years as an engineer working on water and wastewater projects. Now, it is true that, and I've had this actually happen in a farm field. We ran a sewer through a farm field. And because depending on the depth of the sewer, you have stone that sits at the bottom of the sewer. If you give the groundwater a chance to go somewhere, that stone will eventually dewater the area. However, with the amount of wetlands we have in this area, I wouldn't anticipate that being a major concern. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm just saying I haven't experienced it in my 20-year career.
But we did see that around the lake and on Edgerton Street in our town when they put sewers in.
I wasn't there. I don't know what the historical lake levels look like.
So if wells go dry after the sewer expansion, who's liable for that?
I don't know that Tony can answer that question. I don't know that I can answer that question. So we'll have to, that's certainly something the WPCA is gonna have to consider as we move ahead.
Could you just review the process for deciding, I mean, because we have no role in deciding this kind of expansion. I mean, for everyone, just review the process that WPCA and
How it
town
works.
goes through.
So first thing we do is we get the 824 review from planning and zoning. That happened last week. They gave a favorable review on this. As a courtesy, WPCA is presenting this to town council to keep you informed on what is going on in the town. The next steps in this process would be we would design the infrastructure. Then we would hold a public hearing on if we were going to install the infrastructure. Then we would install the infrastructure. And then we would use the infrastructure.
What initiates the process?
I think on this particular application, it was multiple discussions with entities looking at potentially developing this area. We've had requests. I've been on the board. I was on the WPCA board from 2018 to August of this year. We had multiple requests to run sewer up this. Once when the daycare came in, and then probably April of this year when there was potential for this additional development in the area.
But those
Okay.
requests were from the same developer.
I can't speak on the first, I believe that was in 2018 or 2020, but yes, on 2024. That developer.
And this is based on proposed residential and commercial development in what you just identified as a wetlands area?
No, we're not in the wetlands area. The wetlands have all been flagged. All the development as well as the infrastructure will be run out within the infrastructure will be run in the upland review area. We will not be in wetlands at all. And there is a deed on the property with a conservation easement. The deed is restricted to allow only water and sewer and any other utility to run within that conservation easement. But yeah, no, we will not touch a wetland.
I do have a few more questions. So you're saying proposed residential, 144 EDUs, where I haven't seen any proposal for residential development in there. The only plan currently on the table is a 7-lot commercial subdivision. So where would those 144 residential EDUs come
The
from?
same parcel that the commercial's on. I have seen a plan that has,
That plan was withdrawn, and the only plan that planning and zoning is looking at right now is a 7-lot commercial subdivision.
that is correct. We
So
have,
that number may change. That's not
correct.
set in stone.
We have discussed with the developer just last week.
Okay.
He's looking into the,
And then as far as the commercial connections that exist there already, you're saying potential 29 plus the daycare being another 6. How soon would you expect those to connect? Because the same developer was at your last WPCA meeting and stated that the connection fees that you were looking at would not be feasible for him to connect to the sewer, and that his current sewer is expected to last 20 years.
so we've talked with the developer, if this project were to go in the, maybe not the daycare right away, but where the brewery is and the storage units and the medical facility, but we're gonna run that sewer. Can you go back one? One more.
It's, physical-
We're basically going right through where his septic tank is. So he would get connected at that point.
So even though he stated at your last meeting that he doesn't want to pay your increased connection fees, he's still going to connect?
Yes.
Okay. And then the residential dwellings, how soon would you expect the existing residential? I'm just wondering, you're saying 227, and it looks like a great number and like you're gonna make a lot of money. I'm just wondering how soon you would actually get that many EDUs connected to the system to supplement the cost.
So the existing residential, we would not force them to connect. They would have the opportunity to connect as we go by. We would run stubs past the road so that in the future, if their septics fail, they don't have to get a road opening permit. Just going from the center of the road to the edge of your property can be anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 based on all the permits you got to get. So we would get it off the road. And then at the point that their septic fails, they would have to connect. There's no exceptions from Chatham Health.
So it could take quite some time, especially with a lot of that area not even being developed yet. It could be quite some time before you get anywhere close to 227. And if that proposed residential doesn't go through and it does end up being commercial units, you're not going to get quite that many.
Correct.
Also, have you talked with the land use department regarding this plan at all?
We have generally had some discussions with I assume land use is also planning.
Okay,
Yes.
only because I know the inland wetlands has been looking at that area pretty closely. Your proposed pump house is only 100 feet from Pine Brook. That's how it looks according to the scale on your map. And that area does have some pretty extensive flooding regularly. So I would be concerned about the pump house being that close to a flooded area.
Yeah, so by law, we have to have everything that we put in has to meet resiliencies. Back in 2009, 2009, President Obama put in resiliency standards. So our top of structure has to be 3 feet above the 100-year flood line or at the 100-year flood line. And those are the guidelines we would design to.
Okay, so
And now,
that
This
potentially,
is conceptual. It's not a quote final design. This is a concept plan.
because I would also look at the, you have the gravity sewer coming down next to those buildings and, you know, relatively close to Pine Brook. If you had a sewer main break there, that could cause significant contamination to Pine Brook, which is obviously a tributary to Salmon River.
Yeah, we have sewers that basically actually run in Lake Pocatapog. So it is a concern. But
I mean, I know there's some existing, but to put additional sewer lines that close to a waterway that we're, you know, have concerns over. I'd like to see it moved away from there, further away from there, so that we don't run into that issue.
Yeah, the topography is actually going uphill, so we kind of have to run with the topography on the sewer, or we have to add more pump stations, which is a cost for the WPCA. Plus, it's also an additional cost for this project.
Okay, well, I think, you know, considering the, you know, conservation and taking care of the land and the waterways is also important.
Are there any further comments or questions? Thank you. Agenda item 6, bids and contracts. 6A, consideration of a contract for Sears Park Athletic Court replacement.
I'll invite Matt Walsh, the Public Works Director, up to run through this with you and make the recommendation.
Good evening, everyone. Matt Walsh, Public Works Director. So a little history on this project. This was actually started by the former Recreation Director, Jeremy Hall. So it's kind of been around for a little while. Initially, what happened was during the initial design, we got back an engineering estimate. So this would have been last fiscal year. That was significantly higher than we anticipated. So we had gone through the capital process, looking for more money to fund it. And we kind of came to an agreement to go back and see if we could value engineer the project and, still get the gist of what the original scope was, but somehow do it cheaper. So we undertook that and we did some value engineering. We took out some retaining walls, kind of shifted some stuff around to make the project a little less expensive. And we did a redesign and went back out to bid this fall. So bids were opened up on November 27th, and I'm pleased to say that we had a low bid of $250,000, $10.39 from Maisano Brothers of Northford. They were the low bid for the project. Along with this bid also, we included an alternate because again, we were concerned with the pricing and we just wanted to try and get the project done. So the alternate was to save some of the existing fencing around the tennis courts and figure that, okay, later on, we'll come back and see if there's another way to get it done with different funding. But because of the cost and the good pricing on the alternate, to replace all the fencing with new fencing, I would recommend also that we award the alternate for $34,098.20. The other two bids on the project were Command Construction at $372,046.96 with an alternate of $54,380, and Mountain View Landscapes and Lawn Care for $362,750 and an alternate of $58,492. Our engineer went through and reviewed the bids and found everything to be in order. We also made some phone calls to check references on this contractor and everything came back great. In fact, one of the references was a very high-end tennis court builder who does high-end surfaces for some high-end sports facilities, and he highly recommended this contractor, so that was good. So I don't know if there's any questions about that. We anticipate probably about $10,000 in engineering oversight, which based on our experience with the high school court, I want to make sure we have testing done on materials to make sure compaction is being done properly and those sort of things. So I think that's of value to do during the construction for inspection.
Thank you. Any comments or questions?
I have a question, not necessarily, I don't know if it's necessarily for Matt, it might be for Dave. When we agree to the bids, if they say, oh, this costs a little bit more, they're kind of stuck, right? Like this is what they said it costs. And we're,
So typically, right, unless there's something that's an unforeseen circumstance
Okay.
by us or the engineer, like let's say they get 6 inches under the tennis court and all of a sudden they hit wedge,
Right,
right?
okay.
Which I don't think is the case here. That's kind of like an unforeseen circumstance where we'd have to kind of negotiate another price.
I'm just looking at their demolition number and I'm like.
Yeah, well, yeah.
So far under everybody else.
Yeah, so with bids, that's where contractors win and lose bids, right? On mobilization, the demolition. Those are all numbers that they throw at it, kind of guessing. I'm a pretty big stickler for making a return to the contract, I can tell you that.
Anyone else for the questions, comments?
Need a bid, I mean, a motion. I move to award the tennis court construction project to Mizano Construction.
Second,
Your questions? These funds do exist currently in the capital reserve fund.
Would be including the alternate bid in that? as
Yes.
Matt suggested.
Yes.
Yeah, I accept that in my motion.
Yeah. Any further discussion or questions? If not, I'll vote on the motion. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And Sonic Brothers has been awarded the contract on the Sears Park tennis courts.
Thank you.
Agenda item under 6 bids and contracts. B, consideration of contract amendment to VHB for environmental services.
Thank you. The next item you have in front of you is noted the fourth amendment to the contract with VHB for services under the DECD grant. So recall that the town has a grant of $200,000 for various services related to environmental issues at various properties, including the 2 that are identified here, 1 Watrous Street and 13 Summit. In this case, this is the second amendment that deals with significant environmental hazards identified at the property during earlier phases of environmental evaluation. Under this agreement, VHB will be providing a number of services related to water testing and various reporting that the town has to do to the state as we work through the steps in resolving that environmental hazard. So the upside of this is that the work is able to be funded by the grant that we have received from the state. The overage here of about $6,000, $6,500 to be specific, will come from the other grant that the town has, the EPA grant of $500,000 for the same properties as well as 2 others. One of the conversations that I had with the engineer was to ensure that we can finish all of the scope of work that we have under the 2 grants for both of the properties, which includes not only the final evaluations, but the remediation planning, that is deciding and designing the work to remove the environmental hazards that have been discovered. And perhaps most important, identifying and working through a process to show how those properties can be reused in the future so that we can connect with the potential owner or developer for those sites. I've been assured that the funds are available and adequate to finish that work, even if we add this 41,000 and change to the contract. So with the recommendation of the Brownfields Remediation Agency, I would also recommend approval of the agreement as presented.
Any questions? Comments? Entertain a motion.
Move to accept the contract amendment for VHB as recommended.
Second. Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Any comments? Questions? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Contract amendment is approved.
Thank you.
Agenda item 7, resolutions, ordinances, policies, and proclamations. 7A, resolution to adopt public improvements to Deer Meadow.
So the council is asked at this point to accept the road Deer Meadow in the Salmon River Estates subdivision, which is on the southeast part of the town. This is a subdivision that was approved initially back in around 2007, 2009, updated again in 16. And then this particular section of the subdivision was developed over the last couple of years and is finally, I underscore finally, ready for the town to accept. The council is asked to approve the resolution which accepts the roadway based on some final, I'll call them paperwork conditions. Transfer of the land, of course, probably being the most significant. And then there's a couple of items that'll get done in the spring by the developer or by the town using the developer's money more accurately to make sure that the ponds are clean and that the area behind the curb line is restored. The reason we're going forward with the resolution to accept at this point is because, to be quite honest, we want to plow the road this winter, not the developer. Fundamentally, it's been challenging for the developer to ensure that the road is clean. And I think our residents deserve our services this winter rather than not. So the council is asked to conditionally approve the acceptance of the road with that knowledge. And as soon as the paperwork is complete, we'll get it all filed.
David, does the $50,000 bond stay in place, or is money coming out of that?
So we will use some of those dollars to complete the work in the future. That restoration work and that little bit of cleaning the work that we'll do. It won't tap into that very much. When the developer is back or when a developer is back to do additional phase work here, there are some more roads to be constructed. We'll address that bond and restore it to the right number based on the current construction costs when that time comes. Right now, it's serving as a maintenance bond.
David, this is not a private road?
It is not a private road.
Okay.
So it was constructed on the current road standards.
Yes.
Yeah, that was my next.
Yeah,
thank you. That was where I was going with
Matt
that.
did the inspections or Matt?
Okay.
Okay,
Matt did the inspection.
Very
Matt
good.
did it, we're good.
Yeah. Not a private road constructed to our standards,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Further questions, comments?
I make a motion to accept the resolution and accept Deer Meadow Road.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion or comments? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Resolution is adopted.
Thank you.
Agenda item 8A, subcommittee reports and updates. Do we have any?
I do.
Yeah.
The library carpeting. If you haven't been in, I encourage you all to stop in and see it. It looks fabulous, and the library staff did an excellent job moving every inch of that library. So hats off to them. And from the fire commission and fire department, Santa runs have begun. So it's our favorite time of year in town for our residents. And the month of November, the fire department responded to 40 calls and put in 1,079 hours. They weren't as busy as in October with all the brush fires. So the rain has certainly helped. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Deb. Anyone else? Any other reports?
Do you want to comment on the America 250?
Sure.
Go ahead.
So we formed a committee to celebrate the 250th anniversary of our founding of the Declaration of Independence. Our first meeting is going to be Thursday, and we're all hoping to have a lot of fun in East Hampton over this.
Thank you. Anyone else? Moving on. New business.
We have none this evening.
Agenda item 10, town manager's report.
Thank you. If I may just exercise a little bit of prerogative, I'll expand on Councilmember Solomon's comments about the America 250. While certainly East Hampton, which of course is older than the United States, has its spirit and knows all about celebrating 250 years. I'll remind everyone that this is a national celebration. The federal government has established the, if you will, National America 250 committee and has encouraged states to do the same and is encouraging municipalities to do the same. So we're joining in, and I know that that body will do what it can to encourage, as Jack and I talked about today, other entities in town, the Historical Society and others, to find ways to celebrate and to let us all take that opportunity to step back and recognize what was done all those years ago. That having been said, I'll remind everyone that my town manager report is in the packet and is on the town's website as usual. And I just want to touch on really three things. And aside from reminding everybody that the dreaded tax bill comes due in January, the second half of the installment. And for those of us that bought new cars, we'll probably be getting a supplemental tax bill related to that. Unfortunately, we have to take care of that in January. I'll remind everyone of that. But I wanted to focus on some things that are coming in the future for the town where the community should be involved and perhaps will want to be involved. First, I'll remind everyone that next year is a year of revaluation for the town. So October 1, 2025 will be a new, everyone will have a new value on their real property. So starting in January, we'll start making notifications to people, start to gather that data. We'll all start to receive at our homes information about that from the assessor's office and from the company that the town has hired to assist us in that work. So start to pay attention to those kinds of things. There will be opportunities for residents to tell us about their properties. There will be opportunities for us to visually see properties and ensure that we're agreeing with what residents are telling us, and we're making sure that we're seeing what's out there and updating our information so that those assessments can be as accurate as they can be. Remember, the calculation on mill rate goes backwards. So don't worry if your value of your house goes up, just like mine goes up and yours goes up and somebody else's goes up. The mill rate is calculated with how much the levy is and how much the mill rate is. It doesn't go the other way. So just because the value of your house went up doesn't mean and it might go up a lot because we've all seen the housing market. Don't be worried that your tax bill is going to go up 20 or 30% because the value of your house went up 20 or 30%. The other thing I'll mention is an important piece of planning documentation for the town. In the next year or so, the town will beginning and will be undertaking until probably sometime in 2026, an update to its plan of conservation and development. Remember, this is the document that sort of says, what does East Hampton want to be when it grows up, right? We update what we want to be every 10 years. And that can be or should be a pretty significant community experience. As you all know, we hired a new planner, Juliette Hodge, earlier this year. And one of her strengths is developing and writing those plans. So her hire was sort of fortuitous in that regard. She and I have begun discussions about how that will work and what that will look like in the community. And I think we should all begin to expect to be invited to neighborhood discussions, to community discussions, to provide input as that plan is developed for the Planning and Zoning Commission to consider, as I said, probably sometime in early 2026. And then the last thing I'll just mention is the work related to the potential purchase of 11 Skinner Street. We're in the final steps of making sure that we know what that might look like so that we can have a conversation and a vote of the community. So the fire department and the fire commission and an architect that's assisting us and I met recently and began to talk about conceptually what that building should contain and needs to contain. And ultimately that will lead to a basic concept design and, most important, an estimated cost for construction. So stay tuned for that as we move through that final leg of the process. We'll probably have some discussion here at the council. We'll share some information with you so that you understand kind kind of where we're looking, what we're looking at, where we're going, at least on a conceptual level, to get pricing. So big things coming, and some of them talked about in the plan, and then I just mentioned one thing, or rather my report, and one thing that the fire station stuff was not, but mentioned that to you. So-
David, just, we've mentioned it several times, but I think the council does want to go through that, the building, probably with the architect to see what they have in mind.
The architect won't go through for a little while yet. I'll try to arrange that. We'll maybe get the council in sooner rather than later if
Okay.
they want to go.
Are there any questions about the town manager?
Yes.
report? Mr. Notick.
Yeah, relative to the plan and development, we talked about, and which is a huge project and a great thing for the town, quite frankly. But a specific question to you, from your observation, is does the P and Z, once it's done, reference it relative to its decisions on different projects going forward? In other words, from the past, I've seen a tendencies to sort of like get this plan of development done. And again, it's a great thing for the town. But then sometimes we just shove it in the bottom drawer and close the drawer and perhaps ignore it.
Mhm.
And I'd like your comments on that.
Well.
Sorry about
Sometimes
that, but we have to hear this.
I understand. Sometimes I think, and I'll observe, not only in my career, but also here. We're better as municipalities, sometimes at looking at it than we are at other times, right? One of the things that I think is important is that, it always serves as that general guidance. And you will find that, and especially I think with the planner we have, and because of how she chooses to do her job, I think you will find more direct references to the plan of conservation and development in her reports and in conversations with the Planning and Zoning Commission. Will that wane over time? It may. But I think especially once it gets refreshed and is being refreshed, I think that there will be some better attention paid to that. You're right, it does oftentimes get put on the shelf and we forget a lot of what's in there. But it is a guideline and it is a guidance. It's not regulations. It is a guidance. That's
Right.
important to remember. From that, and so when you would see it the most often is in zoning regulation discussions. So that's how the regulations are, how those plans of conservation and development are implemented. So you might not hear it in every conversation, but I think you will. I think you will hear it more often now as we start to move through this and in the future, just the way we do it. Talking about how it might be consistent with a planning and zoning or the plan of conservation and development. And most important, you'll hear that when we talk about zoning changes. You know, if someone comes in and requests a change or the staff is coming in and suggesting a change, you'll talk about how it blends with the plan of conservation.
I'll tell you, in review of this past one, or the one we're currently under, it is truly a tremendous document. It's a great document for the town. If we can equal its effect or equal its insight this time around, it would be a great thing. It's tremendous. And like I say, I think town boards, perhaps even may do well to really bring it to the fore a little bit more in all of its discussions, not just land use, where it's perhaps, as you say, the most important, but also what we do here as a town. It speaks about so many things, demographics, relative to age, relative to economics, economic development, that those are the types of things that we should really keep in the forefront of what we do, because
Sure.
it's a tremendous report if done correctly. Last one, I think, was very well done.
Yeah, oftentimes there's outside resources used, that certainly will be the case here, for a lot of it. You mentioned demographics, and then I think that's really where it all starts, right? So, the initial data input and the initial data understanding of, if you will, who we are today, right? What's our age makeup? What's, how is that changing over time? What's our ethnic makeup? What's our community look like and feel like?
Yeah.
And then how that changes over time will be important. And you alluded to one age, it will be important over time. Economic development is another big chunk of that. I think that's an important piece that I think oftentimes gets, I'll say, overlooked. And it can be pretty powerful if done well. I think that particular section might get some fleshing out in our next revisions.
When was the last one done?
2016.
Usually,
And,
what, 10
sorry.
years.
It is available on the town website, so if anyone's interested in looking at what it currently looks like, so that you can give some input into the next one. It's a great place to go look for it.
The EDC was involved in the last one.
Oh, certainly it was. I wasn't here, of course, but I'm certain it was. Many boards and commissions would have been involved, and certainly the residents would have been involved, and we'll do at least that much this time.
I would just point out that many of the projects and endeavors that this council has undertaken in the last year might serve basis of topics of discussion. Things such as the ambulance task force. Maybe we're a step
Would be
ahead.
dealt with in the planning document. is what you mean.
What other point in your report, Dave, your comment on the events magazine being struggling?
Yes.
Oh,
I do have to say, I think that's an extremely valuable asset.
I agree.
Tremendous.
Yeah.
There's such great stuff in there. Whatever we can do to keep it rolling, we should do. Tremendous outreach to the public about all of the stuff, technical term stuff that we do here in town and have available for the residents. So whatever you need to do to keep it going, I would suggest we do it. Just to plug that.
Okay, thank you.
Is that something that we need more advertising in, or?
If you have the,
I mean, I can certainly reach out to the.
answer to that,
That we-
because
I mean, do we put ads in, right?
that's how it is funded.
Okay. So we need more
And
businesses to support.
our ad sales, as I alluded to.
Yeah.
Are not there.
I can work on that.
Who does that? Is it the publisher does the ads?
Yes. So the town's involvement with the events magazine, which I'll remind everyone is mailed to all of us quarterly. The town's involvement there is content. We provide all of the content. Every last word comes from the staff and the community groups that present that information and provide that to the community. The publisher, his part of the deal, so to speak, their part of the deal is to find the advertisers, both locally and regionally, to support it. And for whatever reason, they have not been able to accomplish that well here in East Hampton. There are several more of these in the county, down towards the shore and elsewhere, that do just fine.
Yeah, I just, the PTO tried to do an ad-based thing once, and it was a third party requesting those ads, and the businesses were like, no, we don't really know who you are. Where if we can get potentially some people in town to ask businesses, hey, you can support and keep this magazine going, perhaps that would be helpful.
And not just that, even if the River East Reporter
Right.
even
Yeah.
put that in the
Yeah.
newspaper. I don't see her here tonight. I
Oh, she
get,
always follows up.
pardon me?
She always follows up on her
Yeah.
meetings.
Okay, that being said, hey,
London.
please plug it, please put it in the newspaper. I think that's very important.
Yeah, I think the community probably just needs to know.
Hello.
London, make sure you get this.
Yeah, please, that would be a tremendous thing. I think it's probably the single most important marketing thing that we do as a town,
Yes.
in my view. We should do whatever we can to keep it going.
David, put Annie Maynard on it. She'll make it happen.
Right.
What's one more thing? She can make this happen.
Sure. I agree with everything that's been said, and we'll continue to look at what possibilities there are. Some of the council members have reached out to me individually and suggested, are there other ways of delivering it? Are there other ways perhaps of getting it produced that can aid in keeping it up? Because I agree. I think it is an important way for residents to sort of get information from it.
Yeah. Great.
So.
We might be able, through the Commission on Aging, we're updating their webpage. And there's discounts offered out there from businesses here for the seniors. So we might be able to collaborate and talk to these businesses about the same
Yeah.
thing. So.
Okay.
I can talk to you about that.
Okay, yeah, no, sure about that.
Anything else?
Is that it?
You all passed the test. You read the thing that was on the very last page.
Yeah. Let's start there.
Agenda item 11, appointments.
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple of items here for us tonight. We received a resignation from Bonnie Berkovich coming off the Commission on Aging. And we're prepared to recommend that Kathy Megan, who is currently an alternate to the Commission on Aging, be appointed to fill the unexpired term of Bonnie through December 31st of 2026, and I so move.
Second,
Motion made to accept the resignation, I guess, of Bonnie Berkovich and to elevate
Kathy Megan,
Kathy Maitland.
Megan,
Megan.
Megan,
Megan to the
M-E-G-A-N.
full position. Is there any discussion? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
And just one other FYI type of thing, we did appoint Dave DeCrescenti to the Brownfields Redevelopment Agency in a prior meeting. And he had communicated with us that there was something else that he had a conflict with and thought that he might need to resign. He did submit a resignation, but then in a very short order, figured out that that obligation had changed its meeting dates. So he can, before we actually submitted his resignation to the town clerk, we after speaking to the chairman of that commission at Brownfields, it seems that he can stay, and he is currently on the Brownfields Commission. So that's just an FYI. We don't have to vote on anything. It's cool, but I just wanted to formalize that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That's it.
Agenda item 12, tax refunds.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to return $5,156.75 to their rightful owners.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? If not, those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Aye, it's carried. Communications, correspondence,
13.
public remark, excuse me. Public remarks. Is there anyone who would wish to make public comment or remarks this time? Aaron?
Hi, I'm Karen R. Johansmeyer, 16 Penny Corner Road, Portland, Connecticut, also part of the East Hampton Fife and Drum. I had an idea for the events magazine. I don't know if it'll work or not, but Joey Burgoyne is in the production end of WTIC, and he's also been on live broadcasts. He has something that's on the weekend at home in Connecticut. You also recently had somebody at Two Brothers Cafe, darting across Connecticut. I heard it on the air. You guys get a lot of brownie points for that one. And they also had one on Main Street in Portland, Connecticut as well. Joey Burgoyne, I met him down in the Meriden Wallingford area. Very nice fellow. He's up for all things Connecticut. And I think they want to see things work for everybody. And there's also an additional idea that may help. The Big E Connecticut Day may be something to consider as well. The Fife and Drum, participate on Connecticut Day, and there's a great deal of interest for all things Connecticut. And could this be something that would be considered as well? Between WTIC AM 1080, they're approaching their 100th birthday as well as a broadcaster, and the Big E Connecticut Day. And on behalf of everybody in the community, I hope it could be considered. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would wish to make public comment at this time? Leonard?
Leonard Johnson, 21 Long Crossing Road. In the procedures for the Water Pollution Control Authority, I'm suggesting that they add an item where when someone requests a sewer extension, that they notify all potentially affected property owners. We did not know about the proposed sewer extension until September. And that only found out it had been done months earlier. And, yes, we did replace our septic system 12 years ago, so it should last another 12 or so. But if it did go, that information may have been helpful in our decision of what to do. Same with water. I think the property owners that are potentially impacted by it should be notified. And if you don't want to have the towns mailing out notices, at least put the thing in the events magazine. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a good idea.
Is there anyone else who would prefer to make public comment and remarks at this time? If not, shut that down. Communications, correspondence, and announcements. I think you see the packet that the town managers put together. I would like to just take one moment to thank all my colleagues on the council for the great job and support during this past year. I wish you, all our wonderful town employees and all our great citizens a very wonderful, happy, healthy holiday season.
I make a motion that we go into executive session for strategy and negotiation regarding the collective bargaining unit, and I invite the town manager and the chief of police to join us.
Is there a second?
That's it.
Motion made and seconded. Go to executive session. I will point out there will be no action once the executive session is adjourned and this council meeting will return at the same time. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Hi.
In the executive session. Thank you all for attending tonight.
Thank you.